Good afternoon, Tony Dottino here to do my Live with Tony. For any of you that might have missed me last week, it was a cruise to Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao. And you may be able to see that from the shirt, the Caribbean shirt that somebody bought for me. Michael and Helen bought this for me. Curacao. And so I wore it today and got lots of nice compliments. Now, I wore it today because I'm in Windermere, Florida. Got to go to the Memory Institute today to see the class of people that were there learning about their cognitive fitness and mental health and how to deal with minor cognitive impairment. And it was a Christmas celebration. It was just a fabulous, fabulous time with 18 people who are just making such a difference to their families by competing, or not competing, by participating and being a part of the Memory Institute. But what I wanted to share with you today is, as I was on the cruise ship for the week, had the pleasure of the Caribbean Seas and a Celebrity Cruise Line, there are a number of things that I noticed that certainly tie into the work that we do and the impact of memory on crew members that just seem to be, it's part of their life. They think about memory, they utilize their memory skills, and it's like, God, I stopped and asked a number of people, how do you do this? What is it that you learn, and how do you do it? So one of the first things I noticed is when I went up to the buffet for breakfast, and sometimes the buffet at night, but I'll give you the good news. I did this cruise, actually lost 1 pound. I was focused, I was determined. I was not coming back from between Thanksgiving and this cruise. I was not going to put on any weight. So I ate when hungry. I ate when there was food that I absolutely felt was nutritional. But in any case, let's talk about the buffets. I was amazed that I saw this woman, Rachel, R-I-T-C-H-E-L, Rachel, a Philippine lady who was just pleasant. Good morning, good morning. Is there anything I can help you with? And I got a little bit spoiled after a while. I'm looking for cereal. Well, what kind of cereal? I'm looking for oatmeal. Okay, and she points. Now, this is this big area, probably 1,000 people sitting different stations in the middle of the food court, the buffet, and she knows exactly where oatmeal is. Well, that put me into a very spoiling mode, because now I said, well, gee, when I want something, what do I need? I go say, Rachel, it's R-I-T-C-H-E-L, Rachel, tell me where I can get bacon, or tell me where I can get sausage, or tell me where I can get a cup of tea, or tell anything I needed across this whole big area in these little serving areas with people standing in front of it, right? And the signs are up over there, but people's bodies are in front of all this. All I needed to do is say, good morning, Rachel, and here's what I need. Can you help me find it? And bam, she knew right where it was. And I said to her, Rachel, I'm very interested in how you've learned spontaneously. How do I learn? Have you learned to remember exactly where everything is in the exact second that I ask you? And I thought I was going to get some massive interest in memory learning and memory skills. But what I learned was, when the buffet area is empty, is what I'm trying to come up with. I was going to call it the cafeteria. When it's empty, she walks around and looks at the stations and where they're putting in things, and she reads the signs, and she waits, and before they open it up, she looks at all the different foods, and she just does that on a repetitive basis. And as she said to me, after a month or so on the cruise, you get to quickly answer it, and this is now my 7th month. So it would be very disappointing to my brain if I did not know immediately where anything that a guest asked me as to where its placement was and how to quickly access or get to it. And I've got to tell you, they've got to have more than I thought about our long-term memory, where we give people 500 bits of information and they have 3 weeks to remember it. She was able to remember thousands of different spots and areas, and she was able to do that in a month's time on her first week. But what did she do? She walked around, and so it's kind of like the memory method of memory powers, walking around and anchoring things she sees to the space they're in, so that she can immediately either take you to or space you. And so I did get spoiled on the breakfast side of this. Rachel was my go-to person. Great memory, never sent me into the wrong spot. Always asked me the right questions in terms of defining specifics about the cereal, what kind of cereal, what kind of bread do you want, where can you get rolls, do you want toast, what you want a bagel, all different spots, which was crazy. Okay, so you can go to different spots and locations, what kind of juices and things. It blew me away at one point that I had to ask her how she gets to learn to be spontaneous and taking guests to different areas. Now that brings me to the dinner table. So now we'll flip to the dinner table. We go to dinner every night. As we sit down, the gentleman that sits down and brings us the napkin and the night menu. Good evening, Tom. Good evening, Evelyn. Remembers my name? Remembers Evelyn's name. Guess he must have thought I was important. Good evening, Mr. Anthony John, my grandson. Good evening, Alyssa. Good evening, Michael, my son. Alyssa is my son's girlfriend. Good evening, Helen, Michael's girlfriend. Oh, Rachel, how are you this evening? You have a good day? I remember seeing you last evening on the upper floor. Whoa. Hey, Dylan, good evening. I'm like, wait a minute, we have a Names and Faces event. We have the Names and Faces. He's remembering 8 names. He's got all those tables he's doing over there. He doesn't have a piece of paper. There's no paper in his hands. He hasn't got a notebook. He's handing out menus, putting napkins on your lap. I'm saying, how would you like to enter the USA Memory Championship? How do you do this? Well, where we threw him off, where we threw him off, is I'm a big person that says, okay, we sat at a round table of 8 the first night, and we changed where we sat every night. I'm not to be like robots on a cruise. Hey, we sat here tonight, let's sit on the other side. Let's sit on the quarter. Let's sit at the 1 o'clock position. One night, 4 o'clock another, 12 o'clock a third, 9 o'clock the fourth. Let's change our positions. And he did say to us, that threw him off a little bit, because the first night, when we introduced him to ourselves, he goes back and he writes names around the circle. Well, when we threw him off the second night, he had to go back and look at his circle. Who was sitting where, and he remembered, though, what? Space. He remembered who was sitting around the circle by face. And then he went back and wrote the names. So when we moved the table around and sat in different spots, he had to go back to his written down circle and see where Tony was sitting, where Michael was sitting, where Evelyn was sitting, and then remember their names. And now he remembered, okay, I knew where that person was sitting, that now they're sitting over there. That's Evelyn. By the fourth night, he remembered our names instantly. He didn't need to look at a circle. But again, I found names and faces. So now we went from the location of where products and things are to names and faces. And I was just amazed at the friendliness and how these people just do this, their cognitive functions. And then remembering what we ordered. Now they write down what you order on a notepad. Here's what the orders are. So it's written down on a notebook pad. But when the food comes out, you got multiple food trays or dishes in his hands. Knows exactly who ordered what food, and boy, it was a diverse group of feeding. but he knew exactly what food to put down in what place, and again repeated your names. So I guess there's a repetition of repeating names. But how many different people? Next week changes. There's a new 8 people sitting at the table. Does he ever mix up this week's 8 with next week's 8? And I just thought the skill of memory being deployed every place you went on a cruise ship, it was just mind-blowing. And then most of all, Dylan, who's Rachel's significant other in life, he goes to karaoke and he sings first couple of nights, and he's walking about the cruise ship and people saying, "Hey Dylan, you sang last night. You sang this song." I'm like, wait, is there something about music? Because they remembered Dylan and even the song he sang, and they gave him feedback on the song and how well he sang it and how much they loved it. And it was just a week's experience. And though I was away from my work, but a week's WEEKS experience in demonstrating the cognitive functions of people on a cruise ship, which just had me going over and over and over again. And then the icing on the cake was a hypnotist had a show where she demonstrated people's ability for short-term and long-term memory. And that just fired me up in thinking about a hypnotist helping people with memory. How's that for a deal? And so as much as I was away from work, the week just brought me to memory, to memory, to memory in almost every place that I went on the cruise ship. That's my talk for Monday. Welcome back. I'm glad to be back. Curacao, I'm here, and we'll see you on Wednesday. Have a great week. We're getting close to Christmas. I hope you remember to send out your Christmas cards and your shopping list. We'll see you Wednesday.